Bill Atkinson, president of Atkinson Strategic Communications, a Baltimore-based public relations firm, and I'm here today with Mike Spinosa, CEO of Shield 7. Shield 7 is a Baltimore-based cybersecurity firm, right? And it focuses on.
That is correct. Shield 7 is a Baltimore based cybersecurity firm. I would say greater Baltimore. We hail out of Columbia, but to me, that still counts.
And you focus on prevention, detection, response.
So, definitely prevention and detection, a little less on the response. We like to lean heavy into prevention because we feel it's much better to catch something before it happens, stop it in its tracks before it goes down, than it is to detect it while it's happening or try to respond to it. And when you look at that from a financial perspective, our theory is very sound. And from a financial perspective, I mean that of the people buying, entertaining, or hopefully not mitigating a cybersecurity risk.
So you must be pumped to be with Shield 7 because, I mean, this is almost a playground because there's so much hacking going on. What can't be hacked? Your car can get hacked, your email can get hacked, your whole corporation can get hacked. I mean, what does this mean for Shield 7?
Well, Shield 7 over the last year has definitely experienced explosive growth. I'm very excited that I was able to join the team in February of last year and be part of that explosive growth. Um, what you said is pretty accurate, actually. We're seeing a lot of security. We're seeing big growth in security for manufacturing. We're seeing big growth in it for healthcare. What's interesting is many of the industries that you would assume would be very mature in the cybersecurity industry or leveraging its resources to make sure it's secure are really just coming around to it now. So we are, as they say, drinking from the fire hose, trying to make sure that we can help people in any way we can, put that preventative layer in, and then manage their security platform for them so that they can always be in compliance. A lot of times corporations will have teams of their own and we will work to augment them so that they can be freed up to do other things. In other cases, we are the security team.
And how many people does Shield 7 employ at the
We're
moment?
just approaching 10. That's up from only 3 in February, and we expect to be anywhere from 20 to 25 by the end of this year.
Wow. And what's driving growth?
What's driving growth is two things. One, we have a very strong practice in something called penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. This also yields nicely to security assessments. What that does is allows us to take the offensive on the behalf of our clients. So we're able to tell them exactly where they're weak, what we can get to, how we got to it, and how they need to protect it. Our second strongest leg is network security. Now, this takes many different forms. Your traditional thought process would be firewalls, but there's so much more than that today. We have products like CloudGuard. We have cloud-based products that protect AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform infrastructure that really focus on compliance, a lot of different things that are happening right now. So between the two, network security and vulnerability assessments, penetration tests are really driving the bulk of our business today with our managed services.
So what types of, well, first, what types of companies are you working with broadly? And then what types of issues are they having? Like real
Well,
life
sir, I'm
issues.
going to have to answer your question with a or answer your question with a question. And my question is, when you say what kind of companies are you working with broadly? Are you thinking revenue size, verticals, a little bit of both?
Yeah, really, I was looking at verticals. Manufacturing is a government.
So it's interesting. We are yielding more into government now. Now, what I would say is our pillars, though, are energy, which is a very interesting one to be in. We work with some of the largest energy companies in the world. That can go across many forms of energy, whether it's wind, whether it's traditional energy, nuclear, whatever the case may be. Manufacturing, healthcare, and finance are the four that are really driving Shield Seven's growth right now. From a size perspective, we're seeing companies typically anywhere from, I would say the low end would probably be 50 million, but larger companies that have the budgets to really protect themselves from these threats. Because what people are really scared of is, like, for instance, on the energy side, what do we see with Colonial, right? That the whole pipeline was locked up. These are dangerous things, and it only takes one moment for the world to be turned upside down.
Yeah. How do these how do companies hear about Shield 7? How have they in the past, and how are you going to change that?
So that's one of my major reasons for being here, actually, is that Shield 7 was probably one of the best kept secrets in the cybersecurity industry for quite some time. The staff and the capabilities of the staff were truly phenomenal, and they lent themselves out to the Fortune 100. And what I've done and what we've changed about that is really becoming thought leaders in the marketplace. So we're driving a lot more focus on being part of even interviews like this, or uh, putting out white papers, content. We're doing lots of events and networking events. So events are more about traditional learning, having people come out, see some of the products that we're using to help people get their security up to speed. And then on the other side, we're doing networking events that bring CISOs, CIOs, CTOs, anybody from the C-level suite together to share their stories and find out from each other what they're doing to protect each other better.
Hmm. And what are your clients telling you? What do they like about Shield 7?
What do they like about Shield 7 is that,
Yeah, why do they do business with you?
oh, yeah, no, I can slam dunk this one. And it's very difficult because you got to stay away from the Me Too stuff. But at the end of the day, is that anything that needs to happen will happen and will be done correctly by Shield 7. We're in our marketplace, we have something called VARs, and this is an important distinction for Shield 7. And if you're in this world, you'll understand what I'm talking about. The vast majority of VARs that you know are very good at selling you a product, but very poor at implementing it, managing it, designing it, doing all the things that need to go around it. Our model is inversed, meaning we're professional services and engineering first. So we are experts at designing, implementing, managing, maintaining, and guiding your future. And then any products that we sell fit into what you're trying to accomplish and where we see the risks. So we flip that model on its head, where everybody's just trying to drive product sales. What we're trying to drive is actual security of the company. Product sales comes second for us. Is a part of what we do, yes, but it's not our primary. So it uniquely positions people to trust us because they see it as evidence in our body of work, which a lot of times they buy the product from somebody, and that's where the relationship begins and ends.
Yeah, it this is unrelenting, I would imagine. Cybersecurity, you're always being attacked, or companies are always under attack, and hackers are they gain sophistication by the minute. I mean, do you feel that? Is it coming into work, and do you feel that pressure all the time, or is it mainly we've got a good system in place? We're taking care of our client, and they should be fine.
So the pressure is always there. The best part about constant pressure is when pressure is constantly on, you become numb to it. So you build up shield and ability to cope and manage with that pressure that's always upon you, and that's what allows us to act so swiftly and to keep our heads about us when we work in a marketplace that's constantly under attack. Absolutely. I think that some groups handle that better than others, and because we're an engineering first organization, we're able to handle that a lot better than most people.
Mhm. For nearly 16 years, you poured your heart and soul into Unleashed Technologies, and then you sold that in 2020. Tell me about the sale, and basically, why did you sell it?
Sure. So, little correction there. 2019 November. So we were right at the borderline. You're close. We were right there, but I don't want to. I don't want to get in trouble with anybody. So I got to make sure the date is right.
That's right. That is correct.
So it was 2019. Um, I'm the type of person that after 15 or maybe 16 years or so with Unleashed Technologies, I had had the time of my life and built so many wonderful relationships. I just had the opportunity to work with so many great folks, and it's always it's always amazing to feel that feeling that when you build something that's valuable enough that someone would pay millions of dollars for it from a personal perspective. And that was an amazing feeling. But I also realized that I had done everything that I wanted to do in that industry. And that I'm a type of person that I want to experience brand new things and do different things throughout the course of my career. And what brought me to the sale was basically that line of thinking was whoever takes this over next, they can take it to a level beyond this level. But for me, I have taken this as far as I want to take it and that I'm passionate about. And you can't lead an organization unless you have the maximum amount of passion. You can't. If you are not fully committed to whatever you're growing or doing, then you're doing what I call treading water. And you can't tread water because if you're treading water, you're just waiting to drown. And it was my time. It was at the height of the boom. Everything was, as they say in The Simpsons, coming up Millhouse. And I just figured it was my time. So I did stay with that organization for a couple years after. I wanted to make sure I was only supposed to stay there for a year after, but I want to make sure we came out of COVID where we needed to before I moved on.
Yeah, when you're running a company, you got to go full bore. You're all in.
Absolutely, and I love watching Unleashed and what they're doing now. But my focus is wholly on Shield 7 Consulting and what I'm moving forward there. And I will tell you, there's a lot of things about this industry that I like much more than the industry that I came from. Now, part of that could be that it's just fresh and it's exciting and it's new. But right now, I'm telling you, I love the demand for the product is just unbelievable. It's overwhelming how much demand there is out there. I love I love working on the more technical side of things again. I really enjoy that. So my professional background was I graduated from college with a comp sci degree. I went into development, then I went to IT, and I was actually in security before Unleashed Technologies was built. So for me, this is just coming back to something that was left unfinished earlier in my career.
And Unleashed was that was a totally different ball game, right? I mean, that's web development.
Yes, these were completely different things, and that's what's so exciting about it, and that's what's so good about it is that there are perks to both industries, and the perks that I love about this industry that I'm coming into Shield 7 is when we fix something, build something, or create something, it's very easy to understand when something is done because it works, or we protected something, or we cleaned something up. So our metrics for success are very clear, and that's a wonderful place to be. We have less of that in the web world when design and other aspects are completely subjective.
So, what do you bring to the table? You're coming from a different world, and you got a couple guys who have started this. Matt and John have started this company. They're cranking along with three people. And what kind of firepower or brain power do you bring?
Well, absolutely. First thing I want to do is credit Matt and John because when I left my experience from Unleashed, I wasn't looking to jump into like a true startup, right? Something of that nature. And the business that they built between the small team that they had, I almost fell out of my seat when I saw it. I couldn't believe how much they had done, but I was brought on for sales, marketing, and strategy. We have all the technical horsepower we need. What they need from me is to be able to create a dynamic sales team, to create a dynamic position in the market, and to guide a strategy growing the company so they can focus what they're best at. And what they're best at is providing solutions to our client. They are bar none. I don't know anybody better than them. So I take that pressure off of them. And we see it in the explosive growth that we're experiencing right now. By taking those pieces and handing them off to me, they're able to focus on what they do best. And they're going to drive more business, more satisfied people than anybody because they don't have these things are off of their plate. So that's what I'm here for. I like to think that I'm doing a pretty good job so far. And remember, I do have industry knowledge because I did come from this world. Now, I will tell you, 10 to 15 years in cybersecurity basically is like 12 lifetimes. So there was a lot to catch up on, and that's part of the excitement as I continue to catch up and see what's new in security.
Yeah, what's the biggest hurdle, or what do you have to learn? Where's your like Achilles heel at this moment? What do you have to figure out?
That's a really good question and the reason why it's such a difficult question to answer is because I'm putting so many systems and things in place at once that I don't know that there's any one thing. I think that happens when you hit another level of maturity. But if I had to point to something, and if you're forcing me to it, I'll be forced to answer. I would say the biggest Achilles heel I have is, uh, as a subject matter expert, I have a ways to go. Have I gained unbelievable knowledge hitting the 1 year mark in February? Absolutely. Do I have a lot more to go? Absolutely. So um, I like to be an expert in everything that I'm doing because I just feel like everybody wins. The client wins, the team wins, everybody wins if I'm that way. And I am fast on the road, but I by no means claim that title as of yet. If you said, Mike, are you the master of cybersecurity? I'd be like, I know some guys that are, right? But right now, I'm still drinking from the fire hose. So my biggest Achilles heel is understanding. I understand what's current in the market. We need to understand what's next. We need to be ahead of that. And that kind of knowledge, that kind of expertise will help me understand what's next.
Oh, you're just walking right into the next question. So, what do you think is next?
So the next big thing is definitely cloud security. And the reason it's cloud security is because there is not a lot of security inside of those platforms today. A lot of people move to AWS, GCP, Azure, DigitalOcean, any major provider you want to name, and they assume that by default they're secure because they are outsourcing their servers to the public cloud. But those groups have no liability to the general security or fitness of those public servers. And this is a common misconception, but that misconception, we're in the middle of it right now. It's ending right now where people are starting to realize they have to secure these things. There are specific platforms that are built to secure cloud because cloud is proprietary. As much as it's public, it's proprietary, meaning AWS, Azure, all these different groups have different ways software is installed, run, what it can attach to, what it can't. And the vendors that create the products for security have to make sure that they work across these different platforms. What's powerful about them is it gives us another layer to manage what we call posture management, compliancy, things like that. So you can look across an organization that has 100 virtualized machines in whatever public cloud, and it could be split. Half could be in Azure, half could be in AWS, or any combo. And it comes back to a centralized management portal where we can see what servers are in compliance, what's patched up, what's happening with all of those different servers in a single location, and do they meet NIST requirements? Do they meet CMMC requirements? What configurations have to change? We can lock down templates, things like that that people aren't doing today. And that is going to be the biggest area of growth right now, if you ask me, is the managing public and private cloud together and making sure they're as secure as people expect. There's an amazing product that's on the market right now today for that called CloudGuard that does a fantastic job, and it compartmentalizes each of those different opportunities so you can get what you need when you need it.
How did you get to Shield 7? Who approached whom, and how did that conversation go?
So Matt Foreman, that is one of the founders of Shield 7, is outside of work is one of my best friends. And when I sold Unleashed Technologies, he had an interest of me joining the team. I was very worried about it because I value my personal relationships over money and lots of other things. So it took a fair amount of convincing and a lot of talks for us to come to the conclusion that this would be a good idea. And I think that that process was incredibly important because here we are, it's a year later and things are going great. Everybody, everybody understands what they bring to the table and what they need to do. And one of the things that was really exciting for me was I came from Unleashed Technologies, our core team that was there. I mean, we were together for almost the entire duration that I was the CEO. And I'm going to have that experience again. And I think that that is something that I thirst and I quest for because anytime you get the opportunity to lead an organization in any fashion, you really want to set of peers that you know, that you trust, that are smarter than you. And I'm so blessed to have that twice in a row. It's amazing, right? And there's a lot of times where people join organizations and the trust isn't there, or they don't have the right people, or the people that were previously committed to another person can't make the same commitment twice in a row. It's too much for them to try to take that on. So there's a lot of rebuilding. We haven't had to rebuild anything. In fact, we're just building, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Um, that's a job versus a mission. You're on a mission and you're breathing it, eating it every day.
I I would say we definitely are, and like I said, it's going really well. Ask me tomorrow, maybe the story changes, but today things are going amazing, and we're just loving the help that we're able to put out there and how our clients feel about us. Because when you run a professional services organization first, people try to pretend like revenue's everything, but it's not. What's really important and what makes you feel good about your work is the impact you have on your clients. If your clients love you, then you love your job in professional services. If your clients don't love you, then you do not love your job. And that's what really makes it working. Nobody loves you all the time. Let's not kid each other here. But at Shield 7, we're in that hyper growth phase where everybody loves us. We're just in a really great position, and it's great to have all those advocates out there for you and people that are rooting for you to win. It's wonderful.
So what's the biggest thing that you learned at Unleashed that you're applying to Shield 7?
Oh my gosh, what a loaded question that is. Are you kidding me? Well, when you talk about Unleashed, that was my first shot. What you did in 15 years, you can do in 5, right? And so there was tons of lessons that were learned out of there. The first lesson I learned is don't do everything yourself. And it sounds so trite and so simple, but everything that I did on Unleashed, I pulled it on my back when it came to certain things. And I realize now that we would have gotten a lot farther, a lot faster if I hadn't had my epiphanies, 7 or 8 years into Unleashed about how to get the most out of people, because people want to contribute in a big way. You have to let them. If you're not ready to let them, then you can't exercise how great they are. You can't hear their ideas. You only hear your ideas. And that is the biggest change of Mike Spinosa of Unleashed to Mike Spinosa of Shield 7. Now, in the later years, I would say I was very transformative for Unleashed and being able to have that happen, but that's happening right out of the gate now. We're looking for the right people, the right resources. We're hiring, and we're looking for people to, that really want to own something. The other thing that I would say early on is I would really let people be responsible for what they're responsible for. If their job role is to do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to delegate. I'm not going to abdicate, but I'll say these are your goals. How you get to these goals is up to you. As long as you're aligned with the mission and the values of this organization, I have no problems. And really giving people the latitude to be successful is very important. Oh, and the final thing is I was the primary seller for Unleashed Technologies. That While that is still true at Shield 7, that will change at Shield 7 as we hit those larger people marks moving forward. We'll have a full-fledged sales team, and we'll have diversity in that team so that we're able to, it's not all resting on one person's shoulders.
So I think you had a quote that went like this: "The price of anything is the life you are willing to exchange for it."
Right, Henry
And
Thoreau. And it's funny, I used to have two sayings when I started my first business, which were green or red, which is a question I would ask people, and I'll expand upon that. And that quote has always been very near and dear to my heart because it's true. In a world that only talks about balance, what's your work-life balance? How's this? How's your balance in your life? You got to mind, balance is bullshit. That's not a thing. If you want something big, then you have to trade big. And it's a very hard message for people to hear. Is if you want something to be extraordinary in your life, I don't care if you play guitar, if you're a professional athlete, if you are a business owner, we see it every day. Kobe Bryant was one of the best because he did more than everybody. The same thing's true for Michael Jordan. If we look at basketball, look at football, Tom Brady did more than anybody. Do you think he had time to balance everything perfectly all the time? It's just not a reality. If you want something remarkable, you have to pay a high price. And that is just the way life is. In terms of red or green or red, I used to say this all the time. When my phone rings, I have a choice. I can pick the green phone or the red phone. If you pick the green phone more than the red phone, then you understand what you have to do. If you're always pushing people to voicemail or you don't want to chat about whatever's going on because it's a lot of times it can be negative calls, you have to pick that phone up, especially as an executive. An executive lives in a world of organized chaos, is what I call it. Our world is organized chaos. We do the best we can to put rails around things, and we need to manage those things. But those people need us. They're calling us because they need us. It's your choice whether you pick it up.
Yeah. When you talk about organized chaos, it's like when you're running a business and when you're starting a business or you've got the business, it's moving along. Businesses evolve constantly and they change, and it's like you've got your arms around a company that's in continual motion as a startup. There are different phases. Do you feel that? Do you see that?
Oh, absolutely. So the most dangerous phase is what I call the whitewater. So there's a lot of different phases. Whitewater for me usually happens around 40 or 50 people. And so when we talk about the phases, there's a great book, "What Got You Here Won't Get You There," and I'm sure a lot of people know that title. But let's just extrapolate the title of the book for a second. It just rings true all on its own. Meaning, you could create a nice $1 million business today, and it could have anywhere from as low as 2 or 3 people to as many as like 6 or 7, maybe 8, depending on what kind of industry it is. And you can be perfectly happy with that. And there's nothing happening. For you to crest beyond that, systems, processes, policies, things have to change and morph. And I've gotten to kind of to a metric where I say every 10 people, things need to be reviewed. So as you go through every 10 people, it needs to get reviewed up until the whitewater. What is the whitewater? The whitewater is where you're not quite big enough to have everything that you need, but that expectation is upon you. For you to break through, you have to find a way to meet that commitment. So you're making enough revenue where you've established yourself as a real player in the space. But now you need to invest in this layer that goes in between. And some people that have been with you the whole time, they're not going to like that because this is more than just basic process changes. One of the best examples I've ever been given is about a printer. And this is there's a printer, you got to put in an office. Now, nobody goes to the office anymore, so no one cares about their printers. But we're going to use this example because it's easy and it's simple. Let's say a new printer needs to be happening. The guy from the $1 million company is simple. He's a doer because if you worked in that company, you got to just get stuff done. He's not worried about any policies, any process, how it rolls out. He goes, "What are you talking about? Just let's go get the printer. I'm going to unpack it. I'm going to put it over there. I'm going to plug it in the wall. I'm going to set it up. It's going to take 15 minutes. What are we talking about here?" Right? The middle of the road guy is a little more refined than that. And he says, "Look, we're going to unpack the printer. We're going to install it, and we're going to make sure the key people get it." When you go into the whitewater, that next level is, we need the printer. We need the stuff. But then they're thinking through all the details. They're thinking about all 50 people in this organization need to be connected to the printer. It needs to have the appropriate rights across all the subnets and networks. Everybody needs to know what the new printer is, and it needs to be pushed out via policy. On top of that, is this printer reserved for anybody or for everybody, or is this a finance printer that's printing out contracts and things? And so all of a sudden, the guy at the bottom is looking at the guy up here, being like, "Why are you making this so tough? Why is this so impossible? We're just putting in a printer. What do we need, a 40-page project plan to put the printer in?" And so the answer is in the whitewater is it's closer to this higher guy, and nobody wants to hear that. That's the tough part. It's closer to the higher guy than is the guy that just says, "I'm just going to plug it in and see what happens," right? So breaking through out of that whitewater, out to the other side, I would say the new $1 million company is the $5 million company. When I was 15 years ago, if you had $1 million company, that was like you proved validity of your concept. Now I feel like that revenue bar has jumped over the course of years to something a little higher. But when you get to that point, those companies that live in that whitewater, if they hang out there too long, they're going to drown. They're going to go away. And you see it all the time in tech. Tech is the area where they drown the most. A lot of, like, if you go in the construction industry, any of those other industries that are more labor based, they can survive in that whitewater indefinitely. But tech industries, people start to quit, key players start to exit. It's hard to replace those key players. So much institutional knowledge is lost, and then the work product suffers and the company falls down. So that's the most dangerous time when we talk about evolution of business is whitewater.
And that type of chaos will really throw off your work life balance if you believe in that. Now you have four kids, and when they look at you, what do you think they think? Because you're going to go at all costs, and I agree with you there.
So it's a common misconception, in my opinion, that you can't have a really great relationship with your children if you're focused on your work. And I don't believe that that's true. I have a wonderful relationship with my children. It's how we prioritize our time. So, for instance, in the mornings, I wake up at 6 a.m. and all of my sons work out, and they work out with me. We talk and we chat. We do those things because I want them to have a good foundation. I coach their basketball teams, but I always make sure I have a backup coach. So if there's ever an event or thing that I have to go to during the evening, they're able to cover it. If you have kids that are not babies, you have your kids on a daily basis from, let's call it 3:30 or 4 p.m. till about 8:30 or 9 p.m., not including the weekends, right? That's your reality. You can give them time and focus and then go back to work. Yes, what are we sacrificing in that process? Sleep. I am completely aware of that. But that is the thing. It has to come from somewhere, right? It has to come from somewhere. I try to make the majority of my children's events and the things that they do to the very best of my ability. And I think I've got a pretty good hit ratio. Do I make everything? No, I don't make everything. But I make a concerted effort to make them a priority. A wise man, Tom Brady, once said, you can only have three things in your life at any one time. And those three priorities are different for everybody. And it's interesting because if you name your three priorities, people will cast judgment upon them immediately. Mine are simple: work, family, hobbies. People would kill me for this third one. You don't know how much, but I know who I am as a person. And that's what keeps me sane. Talk about, whether I want to go shooting, I'm coaching paintball, I like to ride my motorcycle, whatever I'm doing, that's time that has to be there for me to be effective for them as a father and for my company. Because if I don't have those outlets, that's a version of Mike that nobody really likes. And right now, if I had to look at them in order, the hobbies suffer the most, but I do just enough because not all three get equal focus. It's impossible. Right now, work gets the most focus, family second, hobbies third. And tough message for people to receive, but it's true.
Well, it's reality. I mean, the hobby. I mean, that is a way. It's good for your brain to see something different and to process things. That's what I think. But you need that escape from the daily rigors of work.
Absolutely. And if you look at my hobbies, they're all high intensity. So bow hunting, shooting guns, motorcycles, they are all strategically paying. The only thing I can be thinking about when I'm doing those things is that thing. If I'm thinking about anything else, I could be hurt. There's no room for anything else to happen during those times, except for bow hunting. Bow hunting is a lot of sitting. So you have plenty of time to reflect while you're bow hunting. You just have to do it quietly.
You don't bring your phone or anything like that, right? Well,
I bring my phone for safety, but if I'm being honest, I try to really stay off of it. Try to really stay off of it. And I want to circle back to something you said before about what do you think your kids think of that? And I grew up in a family which was wonderful. My father was an amazing father. He was a lifetime at Northrop Grumman. And, one of the things he said is I was always scared to take a risk because I didn't want to do anything that would put our family in jeopardy. And he is so thankful that I am doing the way I'm doing things and how I've decided to live, because that's who, part of him lives vicariously through me and what he wanted for him, but just never felt like he came out of the baby boomer generation. And that was a different way of thinking completely. You get a job, you stay with that company for 30 years, you get the pension, the gold watch, all of it, right? So when I see my kids, and I think that what I want them to see is someone that's not afraid to take risks and is not afraid to do what he loves. And I don't need them to be businessmen or entrepreneurs. I need them to be happy. And to be happy, you have to be willing to put yourself in positions that make other people uncomfortable, whether it's in a career job or any other place. That's the reality. If you're just treading water, you're going to look back on your life and be like, man, shoulda, woulda, coulda. you know?
That's right. That's right. I mean, no risk, no reward, no fun. All of that. Yeah. I have two other questions. Are we okay with two other questions? Two more questions?
I'm absolutely fine.
So, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? I've had this question a lot, and I've always kind of fuzzed.
I mean, do you even sleep? Do you even sleep through the night, or do you get up at 3 in the morning to start thinking?
So it's interesting. I'm going to tell you an answer that is uncommon, which is not a lot keeps me up at night. And the reason, I don't know if I'm too dumb, which could be an answer, right? But you come to a realization. If you had asked me in the first 5 to 7 years of Unleashed what kept me up at night, I would have given you a laundry list of items. But what I came to the realization is that as long as that I am doing my very best, and I know that, and people say that, but they don't know it. They don't believe it. They know that they could be doing more. As long as I'm giving 100%, I feel pretty good about where my future is going to go for me, my team. If anything's going to keep me up, it's the obvious. Revenue, always key. When does a company fail? When its expenses exceed its revenue, right? When income and expense don't match, and anything that negatively impacts my kids or my wife. Those are the only things that can really keep me up at night, because if I lose revenue, then people that work for me can lose opportunity, they can lose their jobs. A lot of terrible things can happen, and we all have families and we all have people that we're trying to support and that we care about. And that means a lot to me. And then the second thing would be anything that negatively impacts my family. So if something was to keep me up, it would be one of those two things. The reason I don't have a concern for those right now is because the fruits of our labor are showing, and I'm in a pretty good spot right now.
Last thing, where do you see, and back to Shield 7, where do you see the company in 5 years? What's it going to look like? How big?
In 5 years, our trajectory, we should be over 20 million by that point. We should be over 20 million by that point. The question mark that I have not worked out is what our national blueprint looks like. Is that dedicated to the DMV area from a local presence perspective? We have clients all over, but like everybody does, because of the virtualization of the world and beyond. Like we have clients in the Midwest and in California. We have clients all over. We can commit to that work remotely. But what I'm talking about is, what does our actual geographic footprint look like for Shield 7? And I don't know the answer to that yet. I could see us expanding in the Midwest or in the South, closer to Texas. There's a big booming economy out there. The Midwest is a really valuable space for us because we have such a niche in manufacturing. So there's lots of areas for us to expand. We have had some international interest, and as an organization, we're not ready to take something like that on. That I feel that you have to have a certain level of maturity to really try to get into that international game. And maybe at 20 or 25 million, we can start looking at that. But right now, we're going to focus on the US of A, as they say, and see where it takes us.
Wow. Sounds great. And Mike Spinosa, thank you for taking the time with me and our viewers at Citybiz.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.